wind rolled in from the shivering sea, and on its breath came the smell of salt and pine and cold iron. Bear Island's pines bent beneath the weight of an early autumn storm, spattering the rough-hewn halls of House Mormont with rain that tasted of ice. Within the keep's great room, torches guttered and flared, throwing orange light across timber walls darkened by centuries of smoke. Lord Jorah Mormont stood alone before the hearth, gauntleted hands clasped behind him, listening to the rain drum upon the slate roof. The flames etched hollows in his cheeks and painted his graying beard with flickers of red. He had not slept. Sleep came uneasily now. Whenever his eyes closed, he saw the auction blocks of Lys, the piteous faces of chained wretches, and Lynessa's smile dissolving into thin air like the perfume she favored. Those memories clung to him, but they were ghosts, and ghosts could be shouldered. He was here, still Lord of Bear Island. He had weathered censure when the crown learned of his smuggling, had bled silver until his coffers rang hollow, but exile had never come. Lord Eddard Stark had spoken for him before the king, and King Robert, half drunk on victory after the Greyjoy rebellion, had spared an old friend another scandal. Mercy, Jorah knew, was never free. In return, he had sworn to ride for Winterfell at the first Raven's call, to lend his sword to the North's defense when Ned Stark required it. Tonight that call had come. The parchment lay upon the oaken table behind him, leather hard from the damp. The words, penned in a neat northern hand, summoned him south to Winterfell for the king's visit. Robert Baratheon would bring half his court in his lumbering procession, and Ned wished those lords sworn to him to stand beside House Stark in welcome. A lord must answer, especially one whose honor still bore fresh bruises. Jorah breathed deep, feeling the heat of the fire on his face. Beyond the iron-banded door he could hear distant voices. Mage Mormont, his fierce brown-haired aunt, giving orders to her daughters. Hardy sailors calling to stable boys as they unloaded salted cod and casks of whale oil from the quay. The chanting of the island septon somewhere in the storm, imploring the Seven to guard fishermen yet at sea. All the sounds of home, steady as a heartbeat. He closed his eyes and let them wash over him until the tension loosened in his shoulders. "My lord?" Jorah turned. Lyra, third-born of Lady Mage, stepped into the hall clutching a bearskin cloak. Rain glazed her dark hair. She had been atop the watchtower, no doubt. "Mother says the surge is rising," she said. "Boats will not make the crossing until morning. You may wish to delay your departure." "A day lost at sea is worth a fortnight gained if I ride with the king," he told her. He found himself smiling at her stubborn set of jaw. So like Mage at that age. "But I'll heed the waves. See that the long ship is lashed. We leave at dawn's first light." Lyra hesitated. "Is it true you'll sail alone? With a dozen oarsmen and one deck of tired shields?" "Enough." "No. You should take me," she said. "Or Jorel, or Mother. House Mormont has never knelt to fear. Nor will it today, but a king's progress is no place for growling cubs." He touched her shoulder. "Listen to your mother. Guard the island, guard the people. When I return, I'll bring tales of Winterfell's splendor." She rolled her eyes, but quelled her protest. "Very well. We'll keep your hearth warm." When she had gone, Jorah drew his sword from the rack by the fire. Longclaw's steel shimmered. Lord Commander Jeor Mormont had carried it to the wall years before, but Jorah's own blade, less storied, yet keen, answered to him just as faithfully. He ran a whetstone along its edge in practiced strokes, while the hearth's embers crackled. The storm outside would pass. Storms always did. Honor, once lost, did not return so easily. Yet this summons was chance, perhaps the last, to prove he remained a man worth his lord's mercy. "Okay." Dawn broke pearl-gray over the bay, and gulls wheeled about the mast as Jorah's longship sliced the heaving water. Sinewy oarsmen bent to their work. Shields lined the gunwales like round brown eyes. Behind them Bear Island dwindled, a smudge of green and granite. Before them stretched 1,000 leagues of coast, and the promise of the king's road winding south from White Harbor. They found the coast quiet. No war horns, no banners upon the headlands. Robert's visit was still days distant. In Deepwood Motte, Lord Glover pressed a cup of nut-brown ale into Jorah's hand, and asked after Mage and her daughters. At Flint's Finger, Lady Alice respected his vow of speed, and offered only salt beef for the journey. Everywhere he felt eyes upon him, weighing, measuring. The North remembered debts. Some men whispered of his poachers and the coin he had clawed from them. Others spoke louder of the choice he made to stay, to face his shame. Jorah kept his chin high, replying with courtesy and a ghost of a smile. But each nod left his neck a fraction tighter beneath the weight of judgment. By the third night, he rode hard through chill forest. The king's road unfurling ahead like a strip of pale hide. The moon hung low, a curved dagger above black branches. His horse snorted at a scent in the air. Wind carried distant smoke. Then hoofbeats drummed behind him. He reined in, spurred his horse off the road, and unslung his shield. Trees embraced him with shadow as three riders swept past. Gray cloaks, helms crowned with bronze bare heads. Mormont, men, Dutch. One glimpsed him lurking and wheeled around. "In, Lord." The rider lifted his visor. Hobbled stone. Scar across his lip. "Jorah steward these past 5 years. Thank the shadows. We thought you'd outrun us. I told no one to follow. Your aunt insisted. The seas were restless. She feared you'd foundered." Hob dismounted, breathing steam in the night air. "We sailed after, 3 hours behind. Ships cannot match a lord's impatience." Jorah's irritation ebbed. "Meg's will is as iron as ever, but the king will not thank an escort in helm and mail. We'll stable in Wintertown. The sight of Mormont's shields will do no harm." Jorah considered. A lord who arrives with sworn men appears stronger than one who rides alone. And Hob was a loyal hound. "Very well. Keep close." They rode at a brisk pace, banners furled. When at last Winterfell's lights flickered upon the horizon, the high walls gray-black against a dawn sky of lavender and ash, Jorah felt a pang beneath his ribs. Home, yet not. Winterfell was memory and pledge and judgment. Somewhere within that castle's cold stone walked the man who had saved him from exile. Ned Stark awaited them in the outer yard, flanked by Sir Roderick Castle and young Robb, a lean, red-haired boy of 15. The Stark banners stirred above the battlements. Jorah swung down from his saddle and knelt, rain-damp cloak pooling about his boots. "Lord Stark," he said. Ned extended a hand, face grave as always yet warm in his gray eyes. "Rise, my friend. You are welcome in Winterfell." That simple grace nearly unmanned him. Jorah rose, found words. "I come as pledged. My swords are yours." "And gladly taken," Ned replied. "The king shall arrive in 2 days. He hunts farther south. That gives us time to prepare. Come inside. I would speak with you." They walked beneath stone archways dripping with meltwater. Fires crackled within the great hall, and servants bustled setting trestles for the royal feast. Yet Ned led him beyond, up a narrow stair to a solar hung with woven deer wolves. The Lord of Winterfell poured dark ale into 2 cups and pressed one to Jorah's hand. "You have changed, Jorah. We all change. Not all. Some cling to the path they first choose." Ned sipped. "I remember the boy who sparred with Benjen in our youth, bold, full of laughter. The man before me now carries storms behind his eyes." Jorah's mouth was dry. "Storms pass. I hope so. You know why I summoned you swiftly." Jorah inclined his head. "The crown remembers debts. Robert scarcely recalls yesterday's hunt when wine is in him." Ned studied the amber in his cup. "But others remember. Jon Arryn did. He was making inquiries about royal men selling poachers for coin. Then he died." A chill pricked Jorah's skin. "You think I'm imperiled. I think delicate matters grow more delicate when the realm's steward is gone." Ned's jaw tightened. "You are safer beneath my roof, beside my banners. Here none will denounce you lightly." Gratitude tangled with shame. "You honor me with mercy twice over. I will repay it." "Man-in-a-hole." "Serve the North," Ned said simply. "Keep your word. That is repayment enough." Don Dany. Robert Baratheon thundered into Winterfell 2 days later, atop a black destrier. Rain blew silver in the sun as horns blared the king's approach. Knights in golden lions rode beside oak and acorn sigils. Velvet gowns flashed maroon, sapphire, emerald. The small folk of Wintertown lined muddy lanes, craning for a glimpse of legend. Atop the battlements, Jorah watched with ambivalence. A man who had pardoned him, true, but also a man who might turn on whim. Near him, Hob murmured, "King drinks like he fights? A barrel to the gut?" Robert dismounted, roared for ale, embraced Ned with a vigor that rattled plate. Jorah kept to the ranks of Northmen, until protocol drew him forward. The Queen's eyes, green chips of jade, followed him lazily. Cersei Lannister was all gold, hair, silk, disdain. "Lord Jorah of Bear Island," Ned announced. "My bannerman and friend." "Ah, the poacher lord," Robert said, clapping Jorah's shoulder with meaty force. "Paid a fine price for that folly, eh?" His grin held no malice. "Good man to face the music instead of scurrying across the narrow sea with the other rats. Your mercy returned me to my people, your grace." "Mercy?" Robert belched. "I was drunk and soft-headed." Laughter rumbled through the yard. "No matter. North loves you well, I hear. That is worth more than any pouch of gold." Behind the king, a squire steadied the royal boar spear. Robert eyed it fondly. "We ride for the Wolf Woods tomorrow. Ned swears these forests harbor stags the size of drays. Will you hunt with us, Mormont?" Jorah bowed. "Gladly." "Ha! Bring that northern steel. I'll need stout hearts when the beast turns." "No." The following day dawned crisp and bright. Frost-jeweled leaves, breath drifted white. Robert rode at the head of a hunting column. Lords, squires, kennel masters, harriers. Jorah rode beside Lord Stark, their horses picking amid moss-cushioned roots. The king's voice boomed, telling bawdy tales of battles and beds. Yet as the morning waned, Robert's shoulders slumped, the luster of his youth dulled by ale and fat. Ned shot worried glances while pretending not to. They tracked a great elk, its prints deep in damp loam. The hounds barked madly when they caught the scent. Robert spurred ahead, bellowing, "Forward!" Ned followed. Jorah kept pace. The forest blurred past in drifts of green and gold. A crash of underbrush, a startled, trumpeting cry. Then the elk burst onto a glade rimed with frost. It stood majestic, antlers sprawling like a crown of bone. Robert hurled his spear. The shaft sailed wide, thudded into a tree. Curses followed. The elk sprang, vaulting fallen trunks, vanishing deeper into shadow. Robert cursed louder, struggling to free another spear from its brace. Ned dismounted, calming the king's horse. "Too slow," Robert panted. Sweat glazed his brow. "Gods, I was quicker once." Jorah's gaze followed the elk's path. "Still time," he said quietly. He wheeled his courser. "With your leave, your grace." Robert's eyes kindled. "Have at it, bear cub." Jorah bent low, urging his horse. The world shrank to pounding hooves and whipping branches. He leaned into each turn, reading the ground. Crushed ferns, steam rising where the elk's hooves broke frozen crust. He glimpsed brown hide ahead, weaving through birch trunks. Drawing nearer, he pulled a throwing spear from his saddle. Breath and motion joined. He loosed. The spear spun, struck true behind the elk's shoulder. The beast staggered. Jorah leapt from the saddle while the horse was still sliding, unsheathed his sword, and finished the kill cleanly. When Robert and Ned arrived moments later, they found him kneeling beside the fallen giant, hands stained crimson. Robert's laughter shook the glade. "Well thrown. I'll see that horn mounted above your hearth." Jorah rose slowly. "The meat is yours, sire. Let none say King Robert's hunt returned empty." "Nansauer." Robert thumped his back. "Generous and gallant. You shame the rest of us Northmen." His eyes, though merry, held a glint of calculation, as if reassessing a piece upon the board. "We sup together tonight. Bring your cup." That evening the great hall roared with song. Roasted elk steamed upon platters. The smell of sage and venison drifted. Robert drank deep, regaling courtiers with the tale of Jorah's swift spear. Cersei watched from her gilded chair, lips curved in faint amusement. At her side, Ser Jaime lounged in golden mail, tapping gloved fingers on his goblet. Lord Renly whispered to Sir Loras and laughed. Jorah sat among northern lords. Wine warmed his chest, and yet he drank sparingly. He felt eyes upon him, some admiring, some envious, some merely curious. The king's favor was fickle coin. Spend it unwisely, and it tarnished. He lifted his cup to Ned across the hall. Ned's answering nod carried quiet pride. Later, when musicians turned to softer airs and torches burned low, a page approached Jorah. His Grace requests your company in the solar. The room beyond the great hearth was smaller, hung with arras depicting a hunt. Robert stood before a lattice window, moonlight silvering his beard. He dismissed 2 guards with a wave, and gestured for Jorah to pour wine. Ned speaks well of you, the king began. Says you've righted wrongs done in haste. I seek to. Words are wind. Deeds carve stone. Today you carved. Robert drank. I'll not forget. Your faith humbles me. Faith? Pa. I count debts. Mormont. A man who saves me from an empty spit of venison is a man worth counting. He chuckled, then sobered. Tell me true, do you still smart under fines paid? Jorah's jaw tightened. Silver replenishes slowly on Bear Island, but my people eat. And the lady wife? Lyness Hightower, was it not? The name was a knife. Gone, your grace. Robert grunted. Hightowers have long memories. Still, a man free of southern entanglements is useful. He looked over his shoulder, gauging the door. I go to King's Landing when this feast is done. Gods help me. The court swarms with vipers. Ned will be my hand, yet even Ned cannot watch every shadow. The king's gaze fixed Jorah. I could use a shield at my back. A man I trust. The room tilted. You would have me ride south? Ace one of my household guard. Your crimes forgiven, your coffers mended. I'd see you paid in land richer than your craggy isle. For a heartbeat he saw it. Golden fields along the Mander, orchards heavy with fruit, a keep of pale stone where gulls wheeled. All the glory Lyness had craved, within reach. But then, he heard Bear Island's surf, smelled pine smoke, saw Lyra's earnest eyes, and Ned Stark's quiet faith. Your grace honors me beyond measure, he said, voice hoarse. Yet my place is in the north. I have debts there still. Robert studied him. So be it. A man who refuses gold is either a fool or a friend. I think you the latter. He clapped Jorah's arm. But should you tire of snow and sealskins, you'll find warmer welcome beneath my banner. Omnial. Eketai. Days passed, filled with tourneys of archery and tests of harping skill. Summer lingered at Winterfell, though the air turned crisp. Jorah sparred with Robb and Theon beneath the quadrangle, teaching them the low shield hook had learned in Volantis. He dined with Benjen Stark, who spoke of the walls, thinning ranks and dark rumors of shadows beyond the forest. At dusk he walked the Godswood alone, weirwood faces watching as he weighed Robert's offer against his island's needs. One mist pearl morning, a raven arrived on black wings, sealed with wax, the color of blood. Lord Stark broke the seal in silence, his brows knit. He summoned Jorah to the crypts beneath Winterfell, where silent kings slept with stone wolves at their feet. Dim torchlight lined the passage, and dust motes drifted like spirits. From Stony Shore, Ned said, handing him the letter. Ironborn longships sighted off the coast. Raids upon fishing villages. Jorah's pulse quickened. Bear Island lay but a night's sail from those coasts. Mage will rally the women, he said, though worry gnawed. Yet islanders are few. The north cannot stand idle, Ned replied. Robb will ride to Moat Cailin, muster men. I would have you return to Bear Island. Rally what strength you can. Hold fast till our banners reach Deepwood Motte. The king departs tomorrow. He leaves us free to act. Davos. Jorah bowed. I sail within the hour. They paused at the statue of Lyanna Stark, Petals of winter roses long turned to dust upon her stone lap. Ned's voice was low. "Guard our shores, Jorah, and guard your own heart. The Ironborn prize fear, deny it, and they falter. I will bring them naught but steel." They clasped forearms beneath the flickering torch. As Jorah rode from Winterfell that afternoon, a raven wheeled high above, black against a pale sky. Thunder rumbled far off, heralding storm or war. He could not tell. Yet he knew his place now. Not in the gilded halls of King's Landing, nor at the feet of a Hightower maiden. His path wound through salt spray and fir scent, through oath and debt and the rough hands of island folk who kept faith with him. Whatever ghosts trailed him, whatever judgment still waited, he would meet them upon the stones of home, sword in hand, beneath a banner bearing the Black Bear of Mormont. And in the distance, across the wine-dark sea, a frightened girl with silver gold hair whispered to her brother of dragons, once again waking. Jorah did not yet know her name, nor she his, yet the weave of fate strung their lives upon the same great loom. Threads pulled taut from Bear Island to Pentos, from Winterfell to the steaming Dothraki Sea. Each choice sent ripples through a tapestry broader than any lord could see, ripples that would soon become waves breaking upon every shore of the realm. Yeah. PGSQL. Rain hammered Bear Island like a blacksmith's mallet as Jorah's longship nosed through the breakers and scraped against the tide-slick dock. The torches lining the quay hissed and spat in the downpour, their flames dwindling to bruised embers beneath the weight of the gale. Jorah was first over the gunwale, boots splashing onto worn planks, wolves of wind tugging at his cloak. Mage Mormont was there to meet him, her brow knit beneath a sodden bearskin hood, 4 of her daughters flanking her with axes strapped across their backs. "You bring storm with you, nephew," Mage shouted above the roar of the sea. "The storm follows Ironborn sails," Jorah replied, pitching his voice low yet steady. "Tell me all." They trudged to the covered way beside the boathouse, dripping water. Mage's expression was equal parts worry and iron resolve. Longships. 3 first sighted off Stony Shore, then more 4 nights later near the Lonely Light. Scouts claim they fly no banners, but the prows are krakens wrought in black iron. "Victarion Greyjoy," Jorah muttered. "Balon's brother rides those prows." Lyra, cheeks flushed from cold and excitement, spoke next. "Father, they have not landed on Bear Island. But they will try. We've readied the watchtowers, and the fisherfolk have moved inland." Jorah laid a hand on her shoulder, then turned to Mage. "We must strike first. A raid, unanswered, invites more. Our numbers are lean," Mage warned. 200 spears, a score of archers. Black Tide and Harlaw can spit twice that on a whim. Then we'll bleed them where they least expect. I need volunteers. Silent runners who know the shoals east of the island. "Manted ran." Lyra stepped forward without hesitation. "I know every channel, and you'll know battle soon enough," Mage said, voice stern but proud. "Go, light the hall fires. We'll plan at the hearth." They gathered in the great room that night. Captains of crab boats, hardy spearmen, fishwives, who could notch an arrow faster than a Dornish bower. Rain drummed upon the thatch overhead, a relentless pulse that echoed the haste of their counsel. Jorah unrolled a salt-spotted chart on the trestle table, tracing the coastline with a calloused finger. "Victarion wants captives and plunder," he told them. "Hell strike where men sleep easy. We will not grant him comfort. Lyra, you and half a dozen skiffs will lurk here." He pointed to the jagged inlet called Seal's Maw beneath the moon. "When the Ironborn beach to fill casks from the stream, you strike, nothing left to carry tales." "And if their longships anchor south of that?" asked Hob Oldstone, brow furrowed. "Mage and I take 5 longships of our own," Jorah said. "We sail north round the headland under cover of night, then sweep down with the tide at dawn. Their sails will be furled, crews ashore. We burn their hulks before axes ever touch a shield." A murmur of grim approval rolled through the hall. These were island folk. Storms and sudden peril were as common as breath. To set fire to the enemy's oars was to rob them of lungs. Plan set. They went to ready arms. Jorah lingered at the silent hearth after the others had gone, feeding cedar logs to the dwindling flames. Memories from Winterfell flickered in each spark. Ned's sober trust, Robert's booming praise, the letter that had brought him racing home. The realm pulled at him like tides tugging stone. But tonight all that mattered was this island, these people, this battle yet unseen on the horizon. Dawn came murky and sullen. The sea lay under a shroud of steel clouds, its surface whipped to white lace by wind. Mormont longships pushed out in 2 small squadrons, hulls creaking under the strain of swelling waves. Jorah captained the huntsman, Meg's she-bear. Salt spray stung his cheeks as he watched Lyra's skiffs glide away toward Seal's Maw, 7 shadows swallowed by the gray. He silently whispered an old sailor's blessing. Water keep, waves bear, winds guard, and turned his bow toward the northern headland. Hours blurred into labor. Oars dipped, rose, dripped brine. Sinews burned as sailors heaved against the surf. By mid-morning they hove to behind a tumble of black cliffs where gulls wheeled and shrieked. The sea smelled of kelp and raw iron. There they waited, spies perched in the rocks, eyes sharp for shapes upon the horizon. Before long, a cry went up. A thin silhouette of a longship breaching the gray curtain. Then another behind it, sails furled and oars raised as they drifted toward Seal's Maw. From this distance, they looked like ebon needles poised to stitch blood into the coastline. Jorah's pulse quickened. He lifted his helm, the bear snout visor scarred by older wars, and fit it tight. "Row," he commanded softly. Strong but silent. Huntsman moved like a stalking cat, Meg's she-bear pacing off her larboard quarter. Behind them drifted 3 more island vessels, Aurora, Red Salmon, and Krennic's Pride, their tar-black hulls nearly indistinguishable against the wine-dark sea. They rounded the headland just as the first ironborn hull ground onto gravel far below the piney bluff. With the spyglass, Jorah watched shapes vault over the rails. Armored men lugging axes and iron-rimmed shields emblazoned with the golden kraken. Victarion's banner snapped in the wind from the prow, unmistakable even amid the squall. Meg's signal came, one quick raising of her axe. Huntsman's drum boomed twice, and the rowers bent their backs as one. The longship leapt forward. Jorah raised his shield, oak plank rimmed in bronze, painted with the black bear rampant, and drew steel. Arrows whistled from Meg's vessel first, dark streaks against the bleak sky. A heartbeat later Huntsman's archers let fly. The first ironborn on the shingle scarcely noticed the shafts before several sprouted from leather hauberks. Cries rose, steel rang on steel, and the raid became chaos. Jorah's hull kissed the wet sand with a grinding lurch. "Mormont!" he roared, vaulting the gunwale into water up to his knees. His boots sank, water sucking at calves as he surged forward. An ironborn raider met him, bearded, eyes black with fury. Axe swung. Jorah caught it on his shield rim, twisted and slashed low. Steel opened hamstring. The man toppled into froth. Another rushed past, shielding the first. Jorah braced, punched his shield edge into the raider's jaw, felt bone crack, then cleaved down in a 2-handed arc that split helm and skull alike. The beach erupted with combat. Lyra's skiffs flashed from the inlet, warriors bounding out with hatchets flashing in both hands. She led them, braids whipping, face streaked with salt water, a banshee's shout ripping from her throat. She buried a short spear in the small of one raider's back, yanked it free as another lunged. She ducked that swipe and drove her elbow into his ribs, breaking them against mail. Jorah lost track of her in the royal. Victarion's banner fluttered further down the beach, closer to the dunes. Jorah pressed toward it, cutting through resistance. Mage carved a bloody wake beside him. Daughter Daisy fought at her flank, laughter bright and terrible with each kill. Near the waterline stood Victarion Greyjoy himself, taller than most, in black plate damp with seawater, squid-gilded gorget hugged around his thick neck. He swung a great axe in languid arcs that sent men sprawling. The moment Jorah saw him, the world narrowed, storm winds fading beneath the thunder of heartbeats. "Greyjoy," Jorah bellowed, forcing breath over raw lungs. Victarion turned, axe wet with brine and blood. "Little bear," he said, voice rumbling behind an iron kraken beak. "Thought exile tamed you." "Exile never came," Jorah answered, stepping through foam. "The bear stands in his den. Then I'll skin the pelt and wear it to the king's moot." They clashed. Victarion's first blow came diagonal, a killing stroke. Yet Jorah drove his shield up to deflect, knees buckling with the force. He countered with a thrust aimed at the Reaver's knee joint. Victarion twisted away, axe already reversing toward Jorah's neck. Jorah ducked, sand spraying. He rolled, came up under Victarion's guard, and battered the kraken breastplate with his shield rim. Iron rang, but Victarion held firm, backhanding Jorah's helm and sending him staggering. Battle roared around them. Torches flared where Mormont men set fire to longships drawn onto the gravel. The crackle of tar-soaked hulls added heat to the icy rain. White smoke whirled in gusts, obscuring shapes. Jorah spat blood, crashed his sword against Victarion's axe handle, sparks leaping. Their weapons locked, muscles strained, inches separated sharpened edges from flesh. "You fight well for a poacher," Victarion sneered, breath steaming. "I fight for my people," Jorah rasped. He shifted weight, levered upward, and knocked the axe wide. Before Victarion could recover, Jorah rammed his shield plate into the kraken helm, metal on metal. The blow rocked Victarion's head back, staggering him a half-step. Jorah wrenched his sword free, reversed the grip, and stabbed beneath the armpit seam where plate met ringmail. Steel slid deep. Victarion grunted. No scream, only shock, jerked backward, blood pulsing dark down his flank. But Greyjoys do not fall easily. Victarion swung blindly, one last arc Gordy. Jorah pivoted inside it, blade ripping free, cutting once more across Victarion's exposed throat. The kraken helm fell back, red spurted. Victarion collapsed to his knees in sucking sand and surf. His great axe toppled from nerveless fingers, hewn handle splintered. Jorah stood over him, chest heaving, rain-washing gore from his mail. A horn bleated further up the beach, high, wavering. Ironborn survivors, seeing their lord cut down, scrambled to their remaining boats, shoving hulls into surf, made fiery by burning tar. Their retreat became panic. "Let them run," Maid shouted from atop a smoking prow. "They'll carry tales of bears with iron teeth. But tales mean little if ears refuse harbor." Flames rose. The sea glowed orange. Jorah watched as a final longship, half alight, slid into deeper water, silhouettes of oarsmen outlined by the blaze. As it lurched toward the open sea, smoke swallowed it whole. Silence settled. A strange hush, broken only by the hiss of cooling cinders and the groans of wounded men. Jorah's arm trembled, blood dripping from knuckles. He caught Lyra stumbling toward him. She bore a shallow cut along her scalp, crimson streaking her cheek. "It's nothing," she said through ragged breath. "You? Nothing a pint of ale won't forget." He touched her forehead gently, pride surging. "You fought with the heart of Mormont." Behind them, Meg's voice rang clear. "Gather our dead, treat their wounds, burn the krakens and salt the ashes." They obeyed. On that bleak shore, they set to grim tasks. Jorah knelt beside one fallen islander, a youth named Torrhen who had once net-fished herring beside Jorah as a boy. He closed the glazed eyes with calloused fingers. Honor's price. Night was nearing by the time they sailed back. Fires still burned among wrecked ironborn ships, casting long reflections across black waves. The wind eased, allowing a fragile calm. Jorah stood at Huntsman's prow, helmet tucked under arm, eyes fixed northward where Bear Island's pine silhouettes rose. Lightning forked distant clouds, momentarily illuminating the tower torches, their beacon home. Ka-ai, Unikay. News of the Bear Island victory raced on raven wings. In Winterfell, Ned Stark received word first, reading Meg's terse summary beneath the weirwood's red leaves. Robb Stark, just returned from Moat Cailin with fresh-raised men, exhaled in relief, yet tamped his eagerness for glory. The North had bloodied the Ironborn before their blades reached Wintertown's fields, yet rumors said Balon Greyjoy plotted greater mischief still. In King's Landing the raven came as Robert Baratheon devoured breakfast, 3 roast quail, a bowl of cream, and a cup of strong wine. He grinned at the parchment, sloshed wine across Lynn Corbray's sleeve, and pronounced Jorah Mormont, the bear who bites. Varys smiled his soft smile beside the dais, pale hands folded. A stalwart bannerman, Robert proclaimed. Sir Jorah should share this city's larders, instead of chewing kelp on that cursed rock. Cersei sipped watered wine, eyes pinched. Bear Island is far from court, and closer to the wall, where wildlings gnaw marrow from one another. Perhaps Lord Mormont prefers his savage company. Nah. Savage he may be, yet he holds the North's flank. Robert leaned back, belt straining. A pity none of Balon's brood drowned in the surf. When the council was dismissed, Varys lingered, slippers whispering across polished marble. He bowed gracefully. Your Grace is pleased with Lord Mormont. I should be. Robert belched. The man slew Victarion, it seems. Varys' eyebrows lifted. Truly, a notable feat. Victarion was reputed a fearsome warrior. Was. The king smirked. I should fetter Balon by parading his brother's head on a spike, but the bear may have thrown it to the crabs. If I might venture, Varys purred, Lord Mormont's loyalty would strengthen your northern hand. A royal send-off of gratitude could bind him closer. A chest of gold and a letter of thanks? Robert waved dismissal. Send one of you scrawl scribes. With a chance, perhaps, to enlist Lord Mormont's discerning eye in foreign matters. Varys added lightly. Robert frowned, half listening as wine and breakfast waged war in his gut. He waved again, broader. Do as you will, Spider, just keep him loyal. Varys bowed. In candlelit passages beneath the Red Keep, he later dictated a parchment in fragrant ink, praising Lord Jorah's valor and hinting at opportunities of import should the bear choose to exchange salt winds for southern breezes. But Varys penned another letter too, on plainer parchment, marked only with a seal of swirling smoke. This second missive sailed east aboard a swift galley bound for Pentos, addressed to a merchant prince named Illyrio Mopatis. Anya. Across the narrow sea, golden lanterns shimmered in Pentos' palace of dust, as Daenerys Targaryen sat beside an open window, warm breeze stirring pale silver hair. She listened to distant minstrels pluck strings downstairs, where her brother Viserys negotiated for coin and promises. Illyrio Mopatis reclined amid cushions, praising dragon airs, while servants poured sweet wine. Daenerys felt a hollow ache behind the ribs each time Illyrio's eyes lingered, like a butcher assessing lamb before slaughter. She rose, escaping to a balcony overlooking moonlit tiles. Below, cool water flowed in narrow channels between mosaic courtyards. She breathed in the scent of lemon trees, longing for something unnamed. Behind her came soft footfalls. Dora the handmaid. Khaleesi. Dora whispered, though no Khal had claimed Daenerys yet. You should rest. I dream awake, Daenerys murmured, of places I have never seen. Far above, stars burned in silence. Among them crawled the faint track of a comet not yet flamed bright enough to claim whispers of prophecy. Still, some part of Daenerys felt its pull, like a tether tugging from beyond the horizon. She pressed a hand to her belly where fear and hope curled tight together. One day, she vowed silently, the world would not call her a frightened child in exile. Fate, meanwhile, fidgeted in the chamber of the manse where Illyrio cracked the wax seal of Varys' letter. His eyes gleamed when he read of the Western bear who had refused exile and spurned southern courts. Interesting, he mused. For one moral soul might yet be bent to purpose with the right lever, gold, guilt, or something rarer still. Eiko. Anandakan. On Bear Island, thick-scented smoke from funerary pyres drifted into a sky washed clear by storm. The villagers gathered upon the ridge where the weeping pine met the sea, singing old songs of passing. Jorah stood among them, head bowed, as the wind carried sparks into the darkening blue. The dead were few, fewer than any dared hope, yet each name cut, each loss a thread unspooling in the shared tapestry of island life. After the rites, Mage rested a weathered hand on Jorah's arm. You saved them, she said softly. This island stands, and every cub knows your name anew. Victarion will be avenged, mage, Jorah warned. Balin's pride will demand it. Let him come. Bears do not fear drowned krakens. She grinned, but her eyes were wary. Still, we must mend nets and rebuild watchfires. That night Jorah retired to his father's old solar, now his by right, and sat before the oaken desk where Jorah once inked ledgers of fish catches and trade tithes. Wax-sealed parcels lay upon the lacquered surface, ravens from Winterfell, White Harbor, and one curious missive bearing the red seal of King's Landing. Jorah opened Ned's first, praise, condolence, caution. He smiled at his friend's measured script, picturing the Lord pacing before candlelight, gray eyes brooding. The second letter, from Lady Manderley in White Harbor, offered salted cod and 50 shipwrights to repair burned hulls, a kindness he would accept. Last he broke the red seal. The parchment unfurled to reveal ornate calligraphy, extolling his unyielding bravery, and beckoning him to court where King Robert wished to bestow honors befitting such loyalty. A generous stipend in land and gold, said the letter, could be arranged. Jorah felt the old tug again, Lanessa's voice whispering of southern summers and silken beds. But stronger than that whisper was the echo of steel on sand, the sweat and roar beneath winter sky when men died for a hearthfire's safety. He folded the parchment slowly, laid it atop the flame of his candle, and watched royal ink blacken to ash. H.A. Edin. Weeks slipped by. Winter's teeth began to press faintly on the northern air. Bears fattened for hibernation. Pines shed needles in dry avalanches. Jorah oversaw the raising of new stockades along the island's south shore, and men fashioned firepots of whale oil to hurl from the cliff catapults should Ironborn return. Lyra drilled archers daily, her cut already scabbed. One crisp afternoon a ship's horn sounded in the bay. Hob Oldstone, spotting from the watchtower, cried down that banners bearing direwolf and trident approached. Lord Stark's envoy escorting men of House Manderley. Jorah strode to the quay as the cogs moored. Robb Stark disembarked first, leaner than when Jorah had last seen him, lines of command etched on his young face. Beside him, Theon Greyjoy stepped down, slight smirk in place, eyes sweeping the island with an unreadable light. Jorah greeted Robb with clasped forearms. The lad's grip was strong. Your mother sends you yet to war. To duty, Robb answered. Moat Cailin stands ready, but Lord Stark feared the Kraken's arm might still reach. We've severed that arm for now. Jorah eyed Theon, who smiled thinly. Well fought, Theon said. My uncles breed grudges. Better their bones sink here than trouble Pike with lament. Jorah did not miss the tension in Theon's shoulders, the hostage in him wary among those his blood called enemies. Yet Theon rode south on Stark colors, and his gaze lingered on the burned hulks half submerged in the tide. They feasted that night in the new hall, stone walls still smelling of cured mortar. Robb sat beside Jorah, asking questions about coastal defense, scarcity of grain after the storms, and the temperament of Ironborn captives. The boy's eagerness warmed Jorah's heart, but worry for Robb's youth nagged him. How quickly war carved innocence. When at last fires burned low and ale casks lay empty, Jorah stepped onto the ramparts to breathe salt-sharpened night. Beside him stood Theon, alone, arms braced on the parapet. You crave sea air, Jorah observed. Theon chuckled. Hard to forget the taste when you're raised on it. His eyes were distant. Still, I think sometimes I was weaned on stone and snow more than tide. Yet, blood remembers. Blood, yes. Theon's voice tightened. But other ties bind too. Jorah said nothing. Moonlight lit Theon's face. Conflicted shadows. The boy turned to him, as if weighing a decision, then shook his head. Tell me, Lord Jorah, do you regret staying? Every morning I rise and count the cost of my choices, Jorah answered softly. But regret is a chain heavier than honor. I choose to wear one. Theon snorted, but not unkindly. Poetic for a bear. Jorah smiled, gaze sweeping the silvered waves. Across them lay kings and courts, dragons dreaming in exile, and conspiracies slithering. Yet here on this rampart he felt the island's heartbeat. Steady, stubborn, true. "Good night, Greyjoy," he said. "Good night, Mormont." They parted, leaving the rampart to its whispering wind. Jorah descended stone steps to the quiet courtyard, where shadows of pines danced in torchlight. In the stillness he imagined the weave of the realm tightening, each thread crossing another. Varys' unseen designs, Illyrio's secret bargains, Balon's brewing vengeance, Ned's looming honor, Robert's decaying strength. And somewhere beyond horizon's edge, a silver-haired girl poised at the threshold of destiny. Jorah breathed deep, the scent of resin and brine filling his lungs, and vowed again never to forsake the path he had chosen, whatever price the tapestry demanded when next the shuttle flew. Pun. Sequel. Dawn shimmered across Bear Island's eastern cliffs, like molten iron poured upon slate, turning the sea to an expanse of glinting knives. Jorah Mormont stood on the wind-swept battlements of Keep Blackclaw, and watched gulls wheel in ragged spirals, their cries thin in the chill. Below him the tide slurped at red-streaked shingle where the burned ribs of Victorian Greyjoy's flagship jutted like broken teeth. Every ebb left new jagged timbers exposed, as though the island itself meant to display its kill. The battle lay 10 days behind, yet its echo lingered in the salt-tanged air. Smoke still clung to ruined hulls. The iron stink of blood hid in seaweed-choked crevices, and each night the islanders dreamt of kraken helms and axes in the dark. Jorah's thoughts drifted to the letter he had consigned to flames. Robert's generous offer burned no longer, but its ashes haunted him. Land and gold could have mended every debt, built stone-walled granaries, brought southern maesters with glasshouse saplings to coax richer harvests from their stony fields. Yet gold could not buy honor resurrected, and it could not bandage the faith Ned Stark had vested in him. Ned had spared him exile. The island needed a lord who answered his bannermen first, ghosts second, and distant kings last. He inhaled the harsh wind, filling his chest with resin and brine, and felt the calm resolve he had forged during the battle re-harden under his ribs. Boots scraped stone behind him. Meg Mormont strode onto the wall walk, a bearskin cloak snapping around broad shoulders, her braids slick with sea spray. "Our rider came from the watchtower," she said without preamble. "Another longship adrift, stripped of crew, found past the skerries. Broken mast, black sail." "Flotsam?" Jorah asked, eyes still on the horizon. "More likely word from Pike gone awry. Burned and scuttled like the rest." She leaned against the crenellation, voice dropping. "Balon will not let his brother's death rest. The Krakens will come again. We must expect a larger maw next time." Jorah nodded. "I have writs from Lady Manderley. 50 shipwrights and 200 seasoned mariners sail for us this noon on the Illumination and the Salt Trout. White Harbor means to help repair our fleet." Meg's grin was fierce. "Wyman never sends a gift that is not an investment. Still, we'll take his coin and make the timbers sing." She grew solemn. "Robb Stark plans to patrol the western coast with a new levy once harvest ends. He hopes Theon's knowledge of coves may turn ironborn traps inside out." "It may," Jorah allowed. "If Theon can bear betraying blood for blood." Meg spat over the wall. "Blood alone doesn't bind wolves or bears. Oaths do." Jorah remembered Theon's troubled gaze on that moonlit rampart. He hoped the lad would remember where those oaths lay should the realms split along ancient scars. N.D.A. Robb Stark's outriders arrived in Bear Island's harbor 3 days later, ahead of the Manderley cogs, their direwolf banner snapping white on gray in a gust that smelled faintly of snow, though autumn had weeks yet to ripen. Robb himself led them astride a dappled smoke-gray courser, a new length of mail over his tunic, and there was a set to his jaw that spoke of sleepless planning. Theon rode at his right flank, expression hooded, black hair whipped across his eyes. Behind them padded gray wind, gray pelt bristling as though even the direwolf mistrusted the sea air. They dismounted in the outer bailey, shouting greetings to Meg. Jorah descended stone steps to meet them. Robb clasped his forearm in greeting. "Grip harder than before. and they exchanged pleasantries about safe crossings and the harvest at Winter Town. But urgency soon surfaced. "Father Council's caution," Robb said once they had shed travel cloaks in the hall. "He fears Balon may raid Deepwood Motte next, test our resolve through smaller bites. Lord Glover fortifies but lacks ships. We aim to build a cordon. Bear Island north, Deepwood center, Seaguard south, tie them together with fast galleys. Your insight on sails and current would aid us." "And your father's," Jorah answered. "Send ravens to Old Wick. Let their priests know we stand watch. Few drowned men fancy fighting in storms with no plunder but pine pitch." He gestured to a long oak table where a map was already unfurled. Mage was never slow to prepare for council. "Here, look at the tidal flow past the Skerries. We can station watchfires on stone islets. No ship can slip between them unseen at low moon. Naos. Mas." They bent over the chart. Theon lingered, arms crossed, studying the shoals. At length he cleared his throat. Victarion-favored swift night runs through the Ironman's passage. He tapped a narrow strait between two reefs. But a chain dropped across here at dusk would trap even a silent keel. "I can show the exact depth. I swam those waters in my youth." Silence pulsed. Maeg's daughters eyed Theon warily, hands on axe hafts. Theon ignored them, meeting Jorah's gaze squarely, daring him to question motives. Jorah merely inclined his head. "Your knowledge will save northern lives," he said. "We'll dig anchor pits tomorrow." A breath released around the room. The council continued until candles guttered, pages scribbling notes, while outside the storm clouds gathered like gray banners. A.K. Ha-K. That night, wind howled through the pine wood like a chorus of ragged horns. Jorah found himself restless, prowling the keep's narrow corridors. At length he descended to the cellar vault, where ale casks aged in cool darkness. There he discovered Theon seated on an overturned barrel, nursing a clay flagon, half drunk. The lantern at his feet cast restless shadows across the rough walls. "If you've come to chide me for drink, spare your breath," Theon drawled, tone slurred yet sharp. "Islanders share more than salt, we share sleepless nights." "I came for quiet," Jorah said honestly. Theon laughed bitterly. "You'll not find it with a kraken." He stared at the flagon rim. "Do you know what my uncle Euron once said of northern vows? Snow makes men forget they bleed, meaning loyalty runs hot until a warmer tide beckons." "Nasunton. Do you believe that?" Theon toyed with the flagon. "I believed many grand things when I was 10, and watched my brothers drown in salted baptisms." His voice cracked. "I believed the sea never lies, but winter has its own truths." Jorah leaned against a cask. "The sea and snow both demand tribute. Choose which god you pay and kneel." Theon raised glassy eyes. "And you? Which god holds your purse?" "Honor," Jorah said after a moment. "It nearly beggared me once, yet still it asks coin." Theon barked a brittle laugh. "Perhaps I'll worship that one, when it grants me a seat fit for a prince instead of a hostage." He drained the flagon, stood on unsteady feet. "Good night, Lord Bear." Jorah watched him stagger up the laddered stair. Behind the swagger lay a youth torn like rope between two masts, fibers fraying each time the wind shifted. If Theon's choice snapped, the north could bleed. Jorah vowed to keep watch. Kana. Dawn page bled the sky crimson when ravens shrieked over the keep. Jorah jerked awake in the solar chair where he had dozed amid charts. Hob Oldstone pounded on the oak door, breathless. "Rider from Deepwood. Lord Glover under siege. 3 longships, black sail tipped green, landed at Wolf's Fang. They breach outer palisades by nightfall." Within the hour, Robb's men and 100 Mormont spears marshaled in the yard, hoisting packs and mail. Theon, pale but resolute, saddled his bay. Gray wind paced, hackles rising. Jorah addressed the ranks beneath a slate-gray sky spitting sleet. "We march to Deepwood," he announced, voice carrying over clanking steel. 3 days through rough coast roads, 1 more if the storms cut cliffs. The Ironborn hold numbers, but they lack patience. Hit them while they sack. and they scatter like gulls over chum. Mage approached, pressing a bronze-bound horn into Jorah's hand. "Sound this if you need the fleet. I'll guard the island." Her smile softened. "Bring back my Lyra whole or I'll haunt you." Jorah clasped her forearm. "Lyra rides at my shield edge. I guard what I carry." With a final nod, he mounted and led the column through the gate, wet snow kissing helm crests. The march tested bones. Rain thickened to sleet. Mud sucked hooves, and pines closed in so tightly the standard bearers lowered poles to move. Yet spirits held, and by dusk the first day they reached Old Shield Ford to find Wyman Manderley's cogs anchored mid-river, masts shuttered against weather. Lord Wyman himself, stout and florid, greeted them aboard the flagship Silver Harp, huffing steam in the frost. "I bring 50 archers, 60 mariners," he said, wheezing but proud, "plus barrels of lamp oil for your famed bear fires." He winked at Jorah. "My gift to Balin's pyre." Jorah accepted with thanks. That night, they feasted on salt cod and hard bread. Wyman regaled Robb with tales of fat tournaments and better climbs. Robb listened politely, gaze fixed on the black water sliding past the hull, doubtless imagining Deepwood's plight. Jorah joined him at the rail. "Worry gnaws," he observed. "My first true command," Robb replied, voice low. "Father leads no host. The burden lies here." He touched his chest over the direwolf sigil. "If I blunder, men die. Theon says the Krakens favor night. We must reach the Mott before they dig too deep." "Speed and surprise," Jorah said. "We strike at dawn the day after tomorrow. Glover's men will hold the gate if they know help comes." Robb nodded. "Then we ride until horses bleed, camp once, then ride again." Jorah approved. In a day, they reached Deepwood on the cusp of first light, as a pale mist draped the outer woods. Smoke rose thin as spider silk over the palisade, fires from night raiders who had torched storehouses. Through the haze, Jorah glimpsed silhouettes clashing on the ramparts, sparks flying where axes met iron. Greyjoy horns bayed, a mournful kelp-drowned tune answered by Glover war horns atop the keep. Robb gave no speeches. He merely drew his sword, ice crystals clinging to bronze, and wheeled his courser up the hillside. The column surged in his wake, bellies hollow with exhaustion, yet hearts alight with fury. They crested the rise, and saw the Ironborn inside the outer ditch, grappling siege ladders. Some looked up in astonishment. No scouts had warned of a northern host in their rear. Jorah blew Meg's horn. A thunderous rumble answered, the Manderley cogs dropping anchor in the marsh beyond, unloading archers who advanced through reeds, loosing arrows in deadly arcs. Ironborn reavers turned too late. Shafts punctured chainmail, pinning them like thrushes to oak trunks. Robb's cavalry pounded through the half-open north gate left by the raiders for pillage carts, cutting straight into their flank. Jorah led the infantry down the slope. Mud-sucked feet, spears leveled. He found the world a whirl of gray. Rain, steel, screams. He broke a shield wall with his shoulder, rammed his sword hilt into a raider's throat, then barged forward to seize the ladder's base, toppling it with the weight of 3 men. Beside him Lyra danced with twin axes, parrying a blow meant for his spine, answering with an upswing that laid the attacker's cheek open like split fruit. Within moments, the yard below Deepwood's wooden keep became a cauldron of bodies. Glover warriors sallied from the inner gate, a wedge of brown cloaks driving Ironborn back. Amid them strode Galbart Glover, mailed fist wrapped around a heavy mace, helm dented, eyes blazing. He bellowed a greeting to Robb and swung, shattering a kraken-emblazoned shield to splinters. The battle lasted less than an hour. Surrounded on 3 sides, their boats fired by Manderley archers at the marsh, the Ironborn captain blew a ram's horn in surrender. Robb accepted with stern terms, arms cast down, captives to be ransomed or chained. Yet a few fierce raiders chose death. Charging, gray wind leapt among them, tearing throats. When silence finally fell, steam rose from blood-damp earth. Jorah wiped his sword on a fallen raider's cloak, and found Robb standing at the outer gate, breathing hard. Snowflakes melted in the boy's hair, mingling with sweat. You move them like pieces on a board, Jorah said, pride ringing through fatigue. Robb's lips twitched. Father says, battles are won by men, not boards. He surveyed the carnage, face set. Yet I feel each death. Feel them, Jorah advised. Carry the weight, but do not let it anchor your blade next battle. Theon approached, helm under arm, gaze distant. I found the captain, he said quietly. Called himself Harik the Shy, though he fought like a mad dog. He spat in my face for wearing wolf colors. Theon's smile was thin, haunted. Robb gripped Theon's shoulder. Your counsel saved many. Remember that. Theon nodded but said nothing. Galbart Glover strode up, blood slicking his sleeve. My house owes you life, he told Jorah. Bear Island roars tonight in Deepwood's hearth. Jorah bowed. When kraken strike bears, wolves, and otters alike, we answer together. They set to burying the fallen. Northerners laid their dead in barrows among mossy knolls. Ironborn corpses they burned on pyres of wet pine so no drowned god would reclaim them. Flame and steam roared heavenward, and in the sparks, Jorah saw omens of wider war. E.K. Well, night, Wayne. 2 nights later, Jorah gazed into Galbart's war room where a newly drawn map, spread across pine planks. Pins marked each reported Ironborn raid, all along the western shore. The pattern traced a creeping line northward, skirting 10 Towers and Farwind Point until it angled east toward the rills. Jorah tapped the furthest pin. This strikes me as faint, he said to Robb and Galbart. Balon tests for weaknesses, probes Deepwood, bare, flint cliffs. But the true blow may land farther south. Seaguard perhaps, or even Fair Isle, where Lannister trade flows. Nen. Seaguard's bells warn of raids, Robb noted. But Lord Mallister claims quiet waters. Jorah frowned. Quiet seas before a storm are oft the deadliest. A messenger burst in then, one of Manderley's blue-liveried sentries, bearing a water-stained parchment. Galbart broke the seal, mouth tightening. What news? Robb demanded. Balon Greyjoy has declared himself king of the Isles in the north. The words hung like axes. He marshals a grand fleet, 100 longships ready to sail the Cape of Eagles, strike at the neck. King's Landing's ravens cry for aid. Robb's knuckles whitened on the table edge. 100 longships? Deepwood's walls will not halt that tide. Nor Bear Island's cliffs, Jorah said grimly. Balon means to sever the north from Southron aid. Claim dominion. He felt an old chill, a memory of Robert's rebellion, of sieges and fallen friends. We must answer swiftly. They dispatched ravens that night. 1 to Winterfell, 1 to White Harbor, 1 to the Wall, where Jorah Mormont might send word down the lines. Jorah penned a personal note to his father, though he doubted the old bear would see it soon amid wildling alarms. In the small hours, Jorah stood on Deepwood's watchtower, stars frostbright, reflecting on stone like shards. Lyra joined him, arms folded, nose red. You trust Theon? She asked. Jorah weighed the question. He walks a knife, he admitted. But I believe there's steel in him yet, not just salt. Mother says krakens can coil and crush, Lyra murmured. Be sure he does not tighten around Robb's heart. Jorah regarded her, fierce daughter of bears, yet eyes weary now beyond her years. He placed a gauntleted hand on her shoulder. Your counsel is as keen as your axe. I'll keep watch on every coil. They fell silent, listening to pines sigh, each lost in separate ruminations. Far off, thunder rolled. Yet no storm clouds cloaked the stars. Jorah wondered if that thunder was cannons of fate or drums of war. Kui. In King's Landing, velvet heat cloaked the Red Keep when Varys the Spider padded through secret passages to the Tower of the Hand. He found Eddard Stark alone, poring over dusty tomes of lineage, gray in candlelight, the weight of the realm sagging his shoulders. Varys cleared his throat softly. Lord Stark, forgive the hour. Ned's eyes narrowed. You arrive as quietly as guilt, Lord Varys. Speak. Varys bowed. Merely to inform you that ravens from the west report grievous news. Lord Jorah Mormont and your valiant son have repelled fresh Greyjoy raids at Deepwood Motte. But Balon now claims kingship, in effect, open rebellion. And this one. D. Ned's jaw tightened. Jorah fights with honor. Balon misjudges the North if he thinks to wear crowns there. Indeed, Varys purred. Yet a prolonged conflict could thin your armies while the realm teeters on other edges. His eyes glimmered. His grace might value a stalwart northern knight here to temper counsel. Lord Mormont, perhaps. Jorah is needed on the coast, Ned snapped. Our people bleed. Varys placed a delicate hand to his chest. My apologies. I merely hoped to unify strong voices against chaos. He bowed himself out, smile fading in the corridor. The bear would not be lured easily. Perhaps Illyria's alternative plan must mature more fruitfully across the sea. Across that sea, Daenerys Targaryen rode beneath a bruised dusk sky on the edge of the Dothraki Sea, yet still within Pentos lands, escorted by a handful of Illyria's sworn swords. She paused her horse at a low rise where wind bent tall grasses, like waves, and stared westward. Somewhere beyond horizon after horizon, stories claimed sprawled islands of green mountains and a bear-shaped rock that defied krakens. A childish fancy perhaps, yet she felt an inexplicable tug as if fate's thread knotted between her and that distant shape. She placed a palm on her belly unconsciously and wondered if one day she would stand upon foreign shores unafraid. Illyrio, riding beside her on a lumbering palfrey, noticed her silence. You yearn for what, my princess? She peeled eyes from the sunset. For a home that lives in song more than memory. Illyrio's smile was honeyed. Songs are seeds. With care, they bloom into empires. The right allies sow them. He thought of his new letter to Varys. Speaking of alternative alliances, should Jorah Mormont's pride remain northern? Perhaps a different blade might serve. But he said only, patience, Khaleesi. The world's weave draws tight in unseen halls. One tug and the tapestry might unfurl before you. Yeah, Kay? Back in Deepwood, nights shortened as ravens worsened. Greyjoy fleets massed at pike, sails blackening the horizon like roosting crows. Theon grew withdrawn, taking solitary walks by torchlight, sometimes staring across the sea until dawn's chill kissed his cheeks numb. Lyra tailed him once, found him skipping stones with a haunted expression, as though each ripple were a chapter of his life erased. Theon sensed her presence. Without turning, he said, "Tell your lord cousin I do not signal krakens." Lyra remained. "You can choose which shore your stone sinks, Greyjoy." Theon flung another flat pebble. "Stones don't choose. The sea or the bank chooses for them." "Bro. Then be something other than stone," she replied, and left him to the rising mist. Wait, Mikey. Word finally came from Winterfell. Ned Stark summoned Robb Jorah and any able commanders to Moat Cailin within a fortnight. Robert had ordered a royal fleet north to join fight, but Lannister gold blocked grain shipments to White Harbor, complicating provisioning. Robb prepared to ride east with half his host. Jorah would march south to Moat Cailin, gather smaller bannermen along the way. Glover remained to rebuild. Farewells were brief at Deepwood's gate. Robb embraced Galbart and promised relief. He clasped Jorah's arm. "I ride to Winterfell first to reassure Mother. We meet at the moat. Keep Theon close," Jorah advised. "Where eyes see him choose." Robb understood. His nod was grave. They parted in swirling snow. Jorah led his column inland through Wolfwood, pace-tempered by supply wagons. At nights he wrote by firelight in a weather journal. Records of troop counts, ship tallies, grain stores. Yet some pages he filled with memories. Lioness on a hay garden balcony. Robert laughing in Winterfell's yard. Bear Island children weaving pine garlands. He wrote because war devoured memories if left unguarded. 5 days out a blizzard rolled snarling across the flatlands. They hunkered in a ruined watchtower, snow piling knee-deep. Jorah stood sentinel beside the narrow window, watching white swirl. Hobb brought broth, commenting on ominous quiet. Jorah felt it too, as though the storm muffled footsteps of something vast approaching. When dawn cleared, ravens launched from the broken roof, wings black against brilliant snow. One bore gold ribbon, sigil of King's Landing. Jorah's stomach knotted as he broke the seal. The letter within bore Robert's bold scrawl, yet stained by spilled wine. It named Balon a rebel, called banners across the realm to quell him, appointed Eddard Stark commander of the Northern Defense, and ordered Jorah Mormont to ride south to join a new Western Fleet Council in Lannisport. The gold stipend promised earlier was now a royal decree. Jorah read the lines thrice, heart conflicting with duty. To refuse a king's command once might be forgiven beneath mild mood, but twice? Yet the North bled. Leaving now would strip this column of its heart. He folded the parchment carefully, retied the ribbon, and tucked it into his pouch. Command decisions, he thought, age men fast. That evening, seated before the watchtower's meager hearth, he opened his ledger and penned his response on spare parchment. Your Grace, Bear Island shall answer. Yet the realm's spine stands in the north and must not bend. I ride first to Moat Cailin, where winter's jaws clench. When the north is whole, its claws will guard western waters. Jorah Mormont, Lord of Bear Island. He sealed it and sent the raven into purple dusk. Jorah Mormont, Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, received other ravens those weeks. One bore his son's scorched parchment praising victories and pledging oaths. That letter stirred pride he had long buried beneath the black cloak. Another raven carried tidings of Balon's revolt. Jeor set his jaw. Southrone squabbled while winter howled. Yet he whispered, as he fed the birds a strip of dried eel, Fight well, my boy. May your honor outlast mine. K. At Moat Cailin, a spectral fog hung over ruined towers that jutted like fossilized fangs from the neck's soggy earth. Fires glowed through the haze where Ned Stark's camp sprawled, a sea of canvas among fallen stones. Jorah arrived with dusk, leading weary men across rickety causeways. Trumpets hailed them. Ned emerged from his pavilion with Catelyn at his side, her auburn hair flickering copper in torchlight. They clasped Jorah's hand warmly. Your deeds race ahead of your feet, Ned said. Deep wood tells tales. Tales chase the truth, Jorah replied. Greyjoy's sails spread wider every hour. Ned guided him inside the pavilion. A map of the neck sprawled under whale oil lanterns. Around it gathered Great John Umber, fists like hams, Lady Dustin, sallow and sharp-eyed, and Roose Bolton, expression pale and inscrutable. They nodded at Jorah. Roose's lips curved the faintest hint of a smile. Balon aims for the Green Fork, Ned explained, tracing a finger down the map's serpentine river. If he takes Moat Cailin, the South cannot march north except by sea. We hold this choke. Hell send ships upriver from the sunset sea, Jorah predicted. Raid saltpans, harry the trident, draw our eyes from here. Then here we dig, Great John thundered. Iron men love quick strikes, not sieges. We'll bleed them in the bog. Plans unfurled past midnight, dikes to flood channels, archers on causeway berms, hidden caltrops in reed beds. Bolton suggested silent night patrols. Lady Dustin offered horse, her riders versed in marsh. At last, Ned dismissed the council. Exhaustion weighed on every face. As Jorah stepped into the cool air, he found Catelyn Stark waiting. Lord Mormont, she said softly, I thank you for guarding my son. Hey, gods himself. Jorah replied, yet bowed. Still, mothers measure debts differently. Her eyes searched his. I hear the king commands you south. Letters cut both directions, he acknowledged. I serve the crown, but oaths to the north are older stones. I will not leave while krakens prowl our door. Relief flickered in her smile. We need men who hold honor tighter than gold. Jorah inclined his head. We hold it because it slips so easily. He left her to night's hush, walking among silent tents, touched suddenly by loneliness. Honor, he knew, filled cups, but never warmed beds. Yeah? At dawn, scouts brought grim tidings. A fleet of 20 ironborn longships slipped upriver during night fog, sacking Ramsgate, burning fishing villages, then turning back before Umber outriders arrived. Ned's eyes narrowed. "Harrier tactics," he muttered. "Testing our vigilance." He ordered horse to shadow the coast, archers to watch skyward for black sails through morning vapor. Jorah requested leave to lead a galloper unit west to Lannisport. Scout Greyjoy's rumored flagship muster. Ned hesitated, until Greyjohn growled approval. "Let the bear roam." With swift men and fresh mounts, Jorah rode before midday, south, through Kettlebog, and over the Barrowlands. They passed cairns older than the Seven Kingdoms, stones carved with glyphs of forgotten kings. Nights they slept beneath ragged firs, using moss for pillows. Each dusk Jorah plotted star courses like Jor, taught him in boyhood. He felt the land breathe beneath hoofbeats, ancient and enduring. And he felt time pressing, a knowledge that every mile south meant threads tangling with fates he had once refused. 4 days from the moat, near the village of Greenhorn, they intercepted smoke rising behind a ridge. Jorah sent 2 riders to flank. When they returned, grim-faced, they bore tattered cloth marked by a red lion, the crest of House Lannister. A merchant caravan lay pillaged, wagons charred, mules slain, guards nailed to trees with iron spikes shaped as squid tentacles. No survivors remained but a lad hidden beneath a broken cask, shivering. Jorah knelt, coaxed the boy out. He whispered of raiders wearing eel-skin cloaks, eyes painted blue. "Drowned men warriors," Jorah muttered. He ordered burial for the dead, coins to seal their eyes, then pressed coins into the lad's palm and dispatched him with escort toward Oldstones. The lad's grateful tears cut Jorah deeper than the massacre. They followed the raiders' trail, hoofprints sinking into peat, food stores looted from crofts. Near dusk, they overtook them by a ruined sept, whose shattered windows glowed amber in setting sun. Jorah surveyed from the ridge, 15 ironborn gulping wine, their longship drawn into a creek below. They laughed, oblivious. Jorah's men numbered 12. He signaled, a silent wheel motion taught in Bear Island skirmishes. They formed a crescent, bows knocked. At Jorah's whistle, arrows flew, felling 7 before axes left belts. The remaining raiders lunged for shields, but Jorah charged, roaring for the north. His men followed, steel flashing. The fight ended quickly. Jorah himself engaged the captain, a wiry man with a wicked billhook. They traded blows. Jorah's shoulder split, warm blood seeping. He twisted inside the hook's reach, drove his dagger up beneath mail, and the captain gasped salt-stinking breath as life poured out. When silence settled, Jorah pressed a cloth to his wound. It burned, but would heal. He ordered the longship scuttled, supplies collected, and a raven penned. The bodies he left for crows, warning etched on driftwood. North bites, back to Idana. That night, he tended his shoulder by firelight, pain throbbing. He dreamt of Bear Island's hearth, of Lioness touching his cheek with a lily-soft hand, then fading in smoke. He woke with tears and cursed weakness. Inika. They reached Lannisport a fortnight later, to find the great harbor bristling with sails. The royal fleet no less, triremes painted Baratheon black and gold, their figureheads carved as antlered stags. But among them anchored slimmer hulks flying the Red Lion of Lannister. Gold cloak officers marched docks, tallying crates. Jorah presented himself at the Admiralty Pavilion, shoulder bandaged. Inside stood Lord Renly Baratheon, handsome and perfumed, laughing with Sir Jaime Lannister, gleaming in gilded plate. They turned as Jorah bowed. "Ah, the Northern Bear," Renly greeted, voice lilting. "We expected you sooner. Trouble on the roads?" "Ironborn trouble everywhere, my lord." Jaime's green eyes flicked to the bandage. "I see they scratch." Jorah relayed scouts' reports. Renly frowned. "Our fleet can sail within the week, but King's Landing dithers over provisioning. Sir Aaron Santagar miscounts sparrows for venison." Jaime shrugged. "Storm's End men always did starve planning." Renly ignored the jab. "Your counsel is valued, Lord Jorah. Command of Northern Marines aboard the Lady Lyanna, awaits your word." Jorah hesitated. The sea voyage south risked leaving Moat Cailin undermanned, yet reinforcing the Western Fleet could choke Ironborn's supply. He requested a day to weigh news from Ned. That night, quartered in a modest inn, he received a hidden visitor. Varys Littlebird, a boy with shaved head and black eyes. The child slipped a parchment under his door. Illyrio's hand. It spoke of dragons stirring, of Targaryen heirs amassing allies, of fortunes for those who guided flame across the narrow sea. At the bottom, in curling script, the name of Isaac Jorah Mormont, offered as prime candidate. The coin enclosed was heavy, stamped with a dragon on one face, a kraken on the other. Jorah's skin crawled. He closed his fist around the coin until edges bit flesh. Once he might have leapt at such intrigue for gold or lost love. Now he saw chains in every gleam of metal. He threw the coin into the inn's hearth. Fire licked silver, flame whitening. He watched until metal sagged, then turned away. When morning sun ripened the sea to copper, Jorah strode to Renly's pavilion. He bowed. "My place lies in the north until Balon's fleet is shattered. I must refuse command." Renly sighed melodramatically. "The Starks breed stubborn allies." Jaime smirked. "Bears climb trees poorly, yet cling with claws." Jorah inclined his head to both, stepped out into salt wind. He ordered his men to resupply quickly. Grain, salt pork, new horses, and prepared to ride back. As he left the docks, gulls screamed overhead. One dropped a cracked mussel on the planks, shards spraying his boot. An omen, he thought. Shells break, but the meat within feeds those with patience. And yeah, the ride north was harder. Storms turned rivers to churning snakes. Wagons foundered. Men grew ill. Jorah pushed them, haunted by visions of Balon's fleet cutting throats at Moat Cailin while he tarried. They passed villages shuttered, folk hiding behind shutters at rumor of krakens. Twice they fought raiding parties inland, small bands plundering livestock. Each skirmish left fresh wounds to bind, fresh graves to dig. Near the neck, Ned's raven found him. Moat Cailin still held, but Balon's fleet had slipped east into the Bight, threatening White Harbor directly. Wyman Manderley's ships scrambled to blockade, yet numbers were thin. Ned begged for any marines Jorah could spare. He cursed softly. No rest. They angled east, skirting bogs, until the estuary opened, and White Harbor's alabaster walls glimmered under storm gloom. The Bight churned with hostile sails. Jorah counted 40 gray-hulled longships, banners snapping with krakens. Wyman's smaller cogs fought valiantly under arrow fire from the seawall. Ballista quarrels lanced between crests of foam. Jorah galloped to the palace, rallied Manderley captains, and together they hatched plan. Use scuttled fishing trawlers chained at low tide to block harbor mouth, bottling Ironborn under range of city trebuchets. Night saw divers swim with chains. Dawn saw tide rising, trawlers drawn crosswise between shoals. When Ironborn advanced, they found passage narrowed. Trebuchets rained firepots, Manderley arrows poured. Jorah led a sortie of galleys hugging wall, boarding 2 trap longships. Steel roared, decks slicked crimsoned. By dusk the Bight smoked with wreckage. Surviving Kraken ships fled north, broken. In victory, Wyman feasted Jorah beneath vaulted ceilings, praising Bear Island's ferocity. Bards sang of Mormont's chain, while cooks served giant oysters. Amid revelry, a messenger arrived. Balon himself led remaining fleet toward 10 Towers, where Harlaw banners rose rebellious. The war stretched like a serpent across coastline, each head snapping unpredictably. Jorah slept little. At dawn's first bell, he stood on balcony overlooking harbor carnage, gulls feasting on flotsam. He felt exhaustion deeper than bone. How many battles until peace? Yet somewhere within burned a quiet fire, honor kept alive not by others' mercy now, but by his own will. He returned to his chamber and penned letters, one to Ned summarizing White Harbor's defense, one to Mage recounting Lyra's valor, and one to Robb offering counsel for whatever front the boy faced next. Then, almost unwillingly, he wrote to Jorah at the wall. "Father, the north waves banners again. I swing a sword for honor you once feared lost. If winter's ravens whisper my name, know that I kept my oath open-eyed. Your son, Jorah. He sealed them with a blob of green wax and pressed a simple bear claw into it. Outside the wind softened, carrying scents of charred pine and seaweed. Scars of war, but also proof the land endured. Back on Bear Island, Mage stood atop the watchtower at dusk, scanning western skies. Lyra joined her, pointing. High above golden clouds, a lone raven glided toward the island, wings steady. News, Lyra murmured. Mage nodded, heart steady but hopeful. The bird descended, cawed once, and vanished over the rooftops toward the rookery where hobnail boots soon clattered. Whatever the message, Mage knew the bear's den thrummed with life because Jorah had chosen soil over coins, roots over easy flight. She closed her eyes, whispered a prayer to nameless gods, and let the wind lash her braid like a standard of defiance. Far away, under those same winds, Jorah Mormont tightened his cloak, ordered fresh horses saddled, and prepared again to ride where duty beckoned. The tapestry's shuttle raced on, weaving bears and wolves and krakens and dragons into patterns none could yet decipher. But each thread Jorah added shone a little brighter for having been tempered by storms he chose to face rather than flee.